Alright, brothers and sisters, it is official. Everybody thinks that the bull market is over. If we're looking at the fear and greed index, it's at 11. This is the worst ever. I've seen it since the COVID time when the world was going to end. Basically, it was around 9 and 10, and now it's at 11, extreme fear. So it is official. Everybody thinks the bull market is over. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about, is the bull market actually really over? Will we see a bounce? What happens to altcoins? And if there is still hope here, what we expect here. So with no further ado, let's get into today's video. And as usual, I'm not a financial advisor. This show is not financial advice. This show is for entertainment, some education, and hopefully finding God. Is the bull market over? Now, we need to look at a few things here that could tell us if the bull market is over. And before we start, I want to say as well that there was really not a real bull market, but we're going to call it a bull market. And the reason this was not really a bull market because we never seen true euphoria or true extreme greed ever. And the only time we've seen anything close to extreme greed was back in March, or it topped at back in March of 2024. So let's get into it now. Is this quote-unquote bull market over? Now we have 1 week left, or this week, so this weekend is pretty much a very important one. So if we look at the 50-week moving average, we need Bitcoin to close right above it, which is standing now at $100,000. So we need Bitcoin to rally right above $100,000 before this weekly candle closes, which is Sunday night. Right, so we already had the first weekly close below it, and now we have the second. So in general, in this 2024-2025 bull market, we stayed above it. This is the first time we break below it, basically. So that's the first thing that's telling us the bull market is over. And the second thing is this trend line. So this trend line, we can look at it from multiple ways, and there are multiple ways to look at this trend line, and we can look at it this way. So this is the first, this is the last one. So we have 2 point connecting, and we are now right below it. We need to go back to 87K to save the day. There is another trend line, which is this one here, which is a much more higher one, and on this one we're already closed below it the previous week. So the last one we have now is this one. That means we need to close this weekly above, let's say, 85K, 86K. This is not yet telling us we broke a major uptrend on Bitcoin yet, and we have some time to go. That's what we have. The third thing is the 4-year cycle, which says that we topped in October, and that's about it. So we have three things. We have the 50-week moving average. We have this trend line, which has not yet broken. We need the weekly as well to close above it, and we have that. So that's what makes everybody now believe the bull market is over. Will we see a bounce? So that's very important, especially in December. Now, if I'm looking at Bitcoin alone here, as I said, now I just shown you we have this trend line, and one more thing I want to look at is the RSI. So the RSI is very, very important to look to find bottoms. I use it a lot. This is in fact how I spotted the bottom back in the bear market. Here you see this, we call this a bullish divergence. So back in the days here we had this bullish divergence where the price is going lower, but the RSI, if we look at the RSI here, the RSI was going higher. So this is a strong signal of a bottom, as well as whenever the RSI on the weekly is at its lowest point, usually that signals a bottom on Bitcoin and most of the larger cryptos. So back in the days here, this signaled a bottom, and this was in fact the bottom back in there, the COVID time, even though we did not get as low, so does not really count. And then we had this bear market here. And if we go back to, let's say, this time around, and this was the 2015 bear market, this was exactly the bottom on the RSI on the weekly. So this was the bottom, and from there we moved ahead again in 2017, 2019, and then in 2020, and then in 2022, this also marked the bottom. So why is this important? It's because now, while Bitcoin is still above $80,000, the RSI now is entering bear market territory. So if we look at, and we extend this in this green box, we extend where the RSI was at in the bear market. Well, now the price or the RSI is clearly there. So that's an undeniable. RSI is at its lowest point since the bear market. So, or it's at its lowest point since the bull market started. Since basically we started trending higher above $30,000. Bitcoin, the RSI is back at those levels. And back sharply, not even like slowly or something, it is back sharply. So to me, this is the first sign that we could see a bounce soon, and especially in December. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we got in December, we got the end of quantitative tightening, which signals to the market that there is more liquidity coming from money printing, which is also a very strong fundamental macro signal for the market to start moving higher. And now we want to move into the leverage part of this thing here, and on Bitcoin, on the Binance chart, on leverage. So we already lost a few daily supports that were strong supports, but we broke below them, and I had hopes that we will hold above. Well, we're still not yet really out of it, but you can see this fixed range tool. So this level here is 87. If we do come back above 87 before Monday, that means we still have more to go. We still could possibly put a new all-time high. That still has not broken. We still have a higher high from these levels here. And if we go back here, this means it's just continuation, and this was an overextended or over amplified dump on Bitcoin, which is something we see often with Bitcoin. We see those crashes, 50%, 30% crashes, and then Bitcoin continues. So far, we got this, but I'm considering this broken already. So we are now at 84. We are now at 84K. So Bitcoin is rallying, and there is still hope to come back above 87. We need to come back above 87, and then we have 97K. And I'm going to come back to 97K. If we don't, then most likely the bottom or the bounce area before December. So if we don't come back here and we hit this level, which is 74K, if we hit it before December, this would be a strong support. In my opinion, not financial advice, but this is a strong support. It just means we're not going much higher. If we go back to 74K, we could retest 100K or 110K. So in my opinion, 100 to 110K is still on the table for December. It's just a matter of if we will put a new all-time high or not. That's very important for Bitcoin. Now, one reason as well Bitcoin is selling off is the stock market. If we look at the stock market, S&P is selling off, but today is bouncing. It was kind of going up and down all over the place here today, and that's why we've seen Bitcoin also flash crashing and coming back up. So the stock market is coming back up, but recently the stock market has been selling off because of the government shutdown, and which opened again, and we have some delayed data that now the market we just had news that we will not get those data back, and this could affect the Fed's decision to cut rate or not. Now, we have the FOMC coming for the rate cuts in December as well, while we have the quantitative tightening to stop as well in December. There is a lot of bullish catalysts in December that could cause the price to bounce. And since the stock market is really now, especially around Bitcoin 85K, we're seeing the stock market really impacts what Bitcoin is doing. This tells me that the sell-off is kind of stopping. The heavy selling is stopping, and especially that we got the OG Bitcoin whale that is now fully out, sold all of his Bitcoin, made over 1.5 billion from holding Bitcoin from 2011, which shows how holders always get rewarded. So he's finally out. And as we had as well, more sell pressure coming from the ETFs. And yesterday we had a sell of $900 million worth of Bitcoin. This is the second largest. The first largest was 1 billion, and it was back in February of 2024. This usually means the sellers are getting exhausted. The sellers are out, which means this would mean also a price could bounce. Also, because the stock market now is impacting Bitcoin more and more, especially in the lower time frames. Exactly today, more than before now, which tells me this is now more of a market participant buying and selling, and not some heavy sellers now. So the heavy sellers most likely are out at these levels, and now we're following the stock market, which is important for a bounce. If we look at the ETFs and the largest day of the outflows was 1 billion, and it was back at the end of February, 25th February of this year. And if we go back to this chart here, and you will see when that happened. So that also marked a bottom. So if we look at the February 25th, this was this time around here, around this area. Now the market continued to range and go sideways before taking the lows and then making a new all-time high. So we're getting the same thing again now. We're getting a heavy ETF outflow right around here. Now, this is another bottom signal to me. With the RSI, with everything that you just mentioned, a bounce is likely from these levels. One more thing to keep in mind as well. Now, this is all just to look at if we're going to get a bounce. Then we're going to talk about what to do when we get the bounce. So if we look at the weekly, for example, and we want to look at especially here. So this was one of the strongest sell-offs ever. I remember these two here. So this was a floor collapse. This was not a slow sell-off or something. This was like a crash, like 2 weeks of crashes. Now, this took only 2 weeks. We had 1 week, the first week and the second week. Now, even here in the bear market top, or back in 2021 top, we had 3 red weekly candles with one ending with a capitulation candle. Prices crashed, then came back to go sideways, and then crashed again to take out the wick, which something like the October 10th liquidation event, which this would be it, and then the price went below it, and then we had a bounce. Now this is to tell you or to show you that usually we don't have more than 2 to 3 sell-off weeks on Bitcoin, and now guess what, we are on the third week. So I don't think we're going to see 4th and 5th and 6th week of sell-offs on Bitcoin, which is also telling me that it is more likely to see a bounce soon on Bitcoin. Now that's very important to keep in mind. And the sell-off started basically here. If we go back to, or we can really just show it here. And if we look at this uptrend here, so this is when the sell-off started. We should not have broken this downtrend. Now the 10th October sell-off here, or the crash, liquidation crash, and then we broke, and then we started counting the sell-offs, because clearly we can see those are sell-off candles on the weekly. We have 3 now so far. So the likelihood of a 4th is minimal, and we rarely see those even in the bear market. So that's the first thing here, or that's one more thing here to look at and keep in mind. Now today is Friday. Weekend usually not much happens. In general, during the weekend we see pumps, or that's what we've seen recently. That's to say that if we are not going to take 74k now, the 74k level, if we are not going to take it now, today, Friday, before market close, likelihood of taking it is low. So it's less likely now that we are going to take 74k if the weekly just stays here, because a greener weekly candle is much more likely next week than a red one. And even if it's a smaller one, even if it's a one that just gets us back to 88k, 90k and reject again or something, but we need 1 more to 2 more weeks of green before even taking 74k. And if we're to take it, we take it now, right? We take it this weekend before Monday, and then we can say, if not, I don't think we're taking 74k this week or anytime soon, which keeps us in this uptrend of higher highs, higher lows, and save us from this uptrend that I've shown you in the beginning from these lows here, which keeps us in this uptrend here. This uptrend stays intact for now if we don't touch and close around or below it and touch 74k, which also lowers the odds of a new all-time high and lower the odds of and give us more odds of like a dead cat bounce. So that's what I'm looking at here. So just to answer the question here, will we see a bounce in December? Now, a bounce in December is very likely, in my opinion. A bounce here on Bitcoin is much more likely than we just keep bleeding from here and Bitcoin rugs completely and just does this and rugs and crypto is forever done. So a bounce is much more likely in December. That's what I'm looking at. Now, the question is, will the bounce be more like a dead cat bounce, or are we gonna see a new all-time high? So for that, we need more data. We need to wait and see what the market participants are gonna do especially with the Bitcoin ETFs, are they gonna start buying? Because generally last time they marked the bottom when they sold the heaviest, and they started buying. They generally are more like retail. They buy low, they sell low and they buy high. They buy when the trend is going up and they sell when the trend is going down. So with the uptrends, with the highest level and the biggest inflow day which was 1.1 billion, they bought that day when Bitcoin was at $115,000. Now, believe it or not, they bought the biggest buy ever. Not the biggest, but I think the biggest buy ever was at around 75k Bitcoin back in the days when Bitcoin was just trending higher. So the yellow line is Bitcoin trending higher, and now. So the yellow line is Bitcoin trending higher, and the biggest day here was 1.18 billion at 115k, and another big day of 1 billion when Bitcoin was $124,000. So ETFs buy when the price is going up, and they sell and capitulate when the prices are going down. Now, I don't know here, but it does look like the higher the price goes, the more they are willing to buy. So we'll see with this one if we're gonna get a dead cat bounce. If we're going to get a dead cat bounce to this trend line, which is around $110,000, which is the point where we broke and started the trend line or the downtrend. Or are we going to get a new all-time high? For that, we need to wait to see what's going to happen. To me, it looks more like we're going to get a bounce. How high the bounce will go, that's the question. And what we do then and there when we get the bounce. So don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to stay tuned. And join my Discord, link in the description. It's free to join to stay updated. And follow me on Twitter as well, link in the description. Now, what will happen to altcoins? So now here we go to others against Bitcoin. This is the indicator of the alt season. When this thing is going up, when this thing is doing this parabolic against Bitcoin, this is the bulls. This is the alt season. This was 2021, and this was 2017 or 2018. Now the reason this topped in 2018 is because when Bitcoin tops, that's when alt season starts. So if we put down below Bitcoin, you will see that when Bitcoin topped in 2017, this has signaled the start of the alt season. Again, when this topped here, this also signaled the start of the alt season, and as well when Bitcoin topped here, we had an alt season. So, kid you not, the others against Bitcoin is now bottomed. Bitcoin is going down. Let's bring back Bitcoin again. So Bitcoin is going down. You can clearly see that. And others against Bitcoin, which means altcoins are either selling off less than Bitcoin or pumping while Bitcoin is dumping. So all others against Bitcoin is actually going up with a double bottom. Could this be the start of an alt season? I don't know. Could this be a signal sign something is cooking? Apparently, right? Apparently something is cooking here. So can we see an alt season still this cycle? It is still not late for an alt season. We just need Bitcoin to come back up again. Just give us a dead cat bounce. We don't need a new all-time high on Bitcoin, just a dead cat bounce. Right, and then we get an alt season. So that's when it comes to altcoins. Others against Bitcoin is bottomed. Now, why we didn't get an alt season like before? And the reason is because now we have higher rates, and we did not have the money printer like back in 2021 and back in 2017. And this is what altcoins need. And guess when this is happening? The 1st of December, the quantitative tightening will end. So probably next year we're getting more rate cuts, because also the Jerome Powell is retiring or leaving, and Trump is bringing a new guy which is more bullish on altcoins, which is gonna print that cash next year. So this being a very, very different cycle. That's why a lot of people are frustrated, me as well. This being a very different cycle where altcoins did not rally with Bitcoin as usual. And Bitcoin now is crashing, and altcoins as well are following. So it's not even like in 2017 or 2021 when altcoins rally while Bitcoin tops. Or this could just signals that maybe Bitcoin has not topped yet. That also could be the case where Bitcoin could just make another all-time high and then altcoins start to rally. So we have a lot of different scenarios to play with here. Now, if you are afraid and scared and you have put a lot of money into altcoins or crypto in general, and you're feeling down and you need to get out and that's it, you're cooked. What you need to look for is this dead cat bounce, which I just talked about, much more likely to happen now. Or at least in December. We still have November to go, but at least in December we're getting a dead cat bounce. If you are feeling overexposed and you bought too many altcoins and you put a lot of money, especially on the larger caps and all those, that's your exit when Bitcoin does the dead cat bounce. Now, more on altcoins is Ethereum or ETH. That's also something we want to look at when it comes to ETH. It as well rallies when Bitcoin tops. So again, I'm going to show you this here. Let's make it clearer. So this, when Bitcoin tops, Ethereum rallies. Again here, Bitcoin tops, Ethereum rallies. When Bitcoin tops again here, this was exactly, they topped together. Now here they topped together. Also, what happened here is we had the news that the Feds are going to start to increase rates. Could be the reason why Ethereum and Bitcoin topped at the same time. But on the first one here, Ethereum rallied way above what Bitcoin did back in the days, or rallied more than Bitcoin, and kept rallying while Bitcoin was dumping a few more weeks after it. This cycle, we did not have that same reason. It's because of the macroeconomy and all that is not the same as before, and we did not have rate cuts, we did not have as much rate cuts, and we did not have the money printer. So when Bitcoin tops, Ethereum does not do anything really. Now, there is something to keep in mind with ETH, and that is whenever we have a bear market dead cat bounce, which I just talked about, this is what you'd be looking for. Whenever we have dead cat bounces in the bear market, Ethereum rallies more than Bitcoin. Ethereum is better than Bitcoin. So in my opinion, which I'm going to come to now, I do believe Ethereum is much more likely to make a new all-time high in December and this cycle still than Bitcoin. So up top here is Ethereum, right? And you can see now clearly this is 2019. So you can see above is Ethereum, below is Bitcoin, and you can see here, if we take from the high to the low, you can see that Bitcoin came back to 28%, to only being 28% below its all-time high. Well, now if we look at ETH, it came back to 20%. It came back much closer to its previous all-time high than Bitcoin. We can even look at this with the fib extension, and if we put it here, it came back to that 50%. Bitcoin came back to 0.5 on the fib, which is 50% from the low, or 50% of the entire extension here. The entire dump came back 50% of that, recovered 50% of the crash. And if we look at ETH, it came close to being 75% up from the bottom, or to recovering 75% of the dump. So it's clearly outperforming Bitcoin. You can see here Bitcoin came back to the green line on the fib, which is the 0.5. It came close to 0.75, which is 0.70, let's say. It is clear outperformance. Bitcoin or Ethereum is stronger than Bitcoin when it comes to dead cat bounce, which usually because altcoins and Ethereum, they outperform Bitcoin when Bitcoin tops, when Bitcoin is clearly topping or topped, or everybody believes it's topped, or it's actually the top on Bitcoin. That's when Ethereum and everything else starts to outperform Bitcoin. Now, there is another one here. If we look at the bear market on Ethereum, we can see the same thing played out here. You can see that the dead cat bounce on ETH was stronger than Bitcoin. So Bitcoin did let's say a 50%. So Bitcoin did a 47%, 48%, while ETH did a 68 or 66%. But most importantly, we want to know how low they were from their all-time high. So ETH came close to only being down 26% from its all-time high, while Bitcoin down below here was 32% below its all-time high on the dead cat bounce. So on the dead cat bounce, it came close to being down 26% from its all-time high, while Bitcoin 32%. So those are all this to show you that altcoins are likely to outperform Bitcoin, and when we look at others, it tells us the same thing. So with the Bitcoin dead cat bounce, altcoins are likely to outperform Bitcoin, and it is likely to make a new all-time high. Especially if we look at the RSI on Ethereum and the RSI on Bitcoin. If we look at the RSI on Bitcoin, it's been doing this bearish divergence where the RSI is going lower or doing lower highs, and the price on Bitcoin is doing higher highs, which just signals that with each high, Bitcoin is getting weaker. And with Ethereum, we have a different story. With Ethereum, actually, the price is going higher, or at least we had the bearish divergence with the price slightly going higher, but the RSI is completely selling off here. And with this recent rally by ETH making a new all-time high, this was a breakout on the RSI on Ethereum. If you look at it, this RSI on it looks much healthier. It even looks like what we did back in 2019 on Ethereum. We had this downtrend. We had this downtrend here, and suddenly we had this spike up, right? Spike up, then sell off, and then the price continues. So this translates in the price here, where RSI selling off, then spike on the RSI, and then we started trending higher on ETH. And now today, we're doing the same thing. We're selling off, and then suddenly we spike up, which is a new all-time high, and then we crash, and then this means we slowly see it start to recover into the next year, right? Into the next year, maybe January, February, or we could just see a December strong dead cat bounce on Ethereum. That's all very likely. So all in all, this is the scenarios I'm looking at here, what I think will happen. Now, what should we do here and what to expect if we truly enter a bear market, which is still, as I've shown you, it's still 50-50, right? It's still 50-50 as long as this trend line holds. So this trend line needs to hold, right? This trend line, as long as this trend line holds, the bear market is still 50-50. And we still have to see what December got for us. But if we do enter a bear market, let's go to the worst case scenario here. If we do enter a bear market, the first thing to look at is the RSI is at its lowest point since the bear market. So basically we are entering bear market territory in the RSI. And that means the low for Bitcoin is close. It's close, right? To me personally, I think if we see a bear market on Bitcoin, Bitcoin is going right around here. This is where we form the low between, let's say, 40K to 60K or 70K. So where Bitcoin does something like that, sells off here, and then we go ahead again. And the reason this bear market is going to be shorter as well is because we didn't have euphoria. We didn't have many retail buying Bitcoin that can capitulate and over time start selling and keep dragging the price lower, because it takes them longer to sell and capitulate, and they just keep dragging the prices lower. We have more institutions that are more long-term, and people that entered the market now are more the crypto crowd that understand crypto and understand the risk and understand that that the prices can go back up again and are not as easy to shake as the retailers. So we don't have many retailers because of generally we did not have any euphoria to bring them in, so they're not here and that means the bear market will be shorter. That's the thing. And what I want to say is, if we look at when the market topped, if we look at total trade, which excludes Bitcoin and Ethereum, it is still on an uptrend. So that also has not entered a bear market yet. You can see we're still in this uptrend. We got rejected twice from the previous all-time high. Can we break below? It's possible if we do confirm a bear market. But what this means is we've been in a bear market already, right? Already in a bear market. If we do count this high from this time here, which is December 2024, which is over a year, and generally the bear market lasts a year. So this is a bit too much hopium maybe, but bear market generally lasts a year. So even if we do extend and crash from here, I don't think we're extending over maybe March, April, May of next year, and then the bottom is in, and then we reverse for a true alt season, because we did not have one, because we did not have money printing, we did not have lower rates, which are coming next year. So that's what I'm thinking. For altcoins, the bear market has already been in since December of 2024. If I personally, I think it's been in since March of 2024, because most of the alts from 2021 have topped back in April of 2024, or we had an actual true season, because that's when we had the extreme, the peak of extreme greed happened on March of 2024, and that's when I guess most of the retail got into the market, and also that's when I got most of the views on my channel. So I do believe that's what that was the time when most of the retail got into the market here. These two peaks here are mainly driven by BNB, Tron, XRP, those coins that rallied because of big institutions or big whatever market makers pushing the price up. That's why we got this double top here. These double tops did not have any euphoria or extreme greed or retail. We could argue that this was a manipulated pump here to just get retail in, but retail didn't show up, so they decided to push the price lower. That we could argue, but true euphoria, and I remember it happened here in March of 2024. And if we are saying March 2024, this means that what if the bottom is March 2026 for altcoins, and then from there we start trending up only. This is what I'm looking at if we truly have a bear market happening here. And keep in mind that this is when I made most of the money personally, is I bought these lows here and sold the March top and some here, right? Like Pepe above 10 billion and stuff like that. To keep in mind, if this crashes and come back here, like a lower or a higher low from the previous bear market and crashes here, this is where life-changing money is made, right? Like in these highs now today, there is money to be made, but life-changing money is in the real depth of the bear market. So people that stay around in the bear market are the ones that gonna make most of the money next bull market, and then the retail that's gonna come in the next bull market, those are the ones that will have to stay till the next bear market. So the worst is behind us here. If we truly are entering a bear market, I do believe the bottom is close, because quantitative tightening is ending. We have money printing is coming, lower rates, everything that altcoins need is coming. No more of this, is this an all season, is this not all season? No more of this pumps that don't last, or this weak markets or no retail. No more of that. That's gonna stop, and we're gonna have a true all season. So I'm more excited about that, and especially the lower prices we're gonna have here, right? If that happens, or when that happens. So that's very important to stay here, stay tuned, and stay in the markets and keep an eye on the markets. Now, I just gave you all the scenarios I'm seeing that can happen here today. And all in all, you can always join my Discord, link in the description. If you want to ask me questions, it's free to join. And it's very important to be in a group or a community in crypto to keep you updated, or to stay with like-minded people that can help you. So the link is in the description. It's free to join. You can also follow me on Twitter, link in the description. I hope this video was helpful. I did my best to explain exactly what I'm seeing here in the market. Thank you so much for watching today's video till the end, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.